Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The last plate left the pass at exactly 9:47 p.m., and my family still hadn't shown up. I stood in the open kitchen of the hearth, watching the dining room buzz with satisfied customers, my phone burning a hole in my pocket like a loaded gun I refused to draw. "Chef, table 12 wants to send their compliments," Harry called out, her gruff voice cutting through the kitchen noise. Harriet Boone had been my sous chef for 3 years, following me from my last job to this dream. She was built like a linebacker and had the mouth to match, but her knife skills were poetry in motion. I nodded, forcing a smile for the customers who waved from their table. Inside, my stomach churned with a mixture of pride and growing dread. The hearth was everything I'd envisioned: rustic beams overhead, an open kitchen where diners could watch the magic happen, 60 seats that had been packed solid for our grand opening. The local food critic had already left, looking impressed. Everything was perfect, except for the empty table I'd reserved for 8. The one with the little placard that read, "Reserved Harlan Family." My phone buzzed. Finally. Lila's text was short and sharp. "We need to discuss the restaurant. Can't make it tonight. Sorry." Sorry? 6 years of marriage, 2 years of planning this place, scraping together every penny, working 18-hour days, and she gives me sorry on the most important night of my life. The phone buzzed again. My brother Mason. Caught up at the club. Rain check? Then my mother-in-law Judith. "Lila's feeling under the weather. Another time, dear." Another time. As if grand openings happened every weekend. I looked around the kitchen at my small staff: Harry, 2 line cooks, and a dishwasher, who'd shown more loyalty tonight than my own family. They were watching me, waiting for direction, probably sensing the storm building behind my eyes. "Harry, take over the pass," I said quietly. "Soon I need to step outside." The alley behind the hearth was dark and cool, a stark contrast to the heat and energy inside. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the contacts. Lila, Mason, Mom, Dad, Judith. All the people who should have been here, who'd promised to be here, who'd watched me pour my heart and savings into this place. I started typing a group message, my fingers moving faster than my better judgment. "Anyone who didn't show up tonight is out. Pass it on." I hit send before I could stop myself. The phone started ringing immediately. Lila's name flashed on the screen. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Then Mason called. Voicemail. Then my mother. I turned the phone off, walked 3 blocks to the 24-hour electronics store, and bought a new one with a different number. When I got back to the restaurant, the last customers were settling their bills, laughing and promising to return soon. "Everything okay, boss?" Harry asked, wiping down her station. "Perfect," I said. And for the first time all night, I meant it. Absolutely perfect. 1 week later, my perfect world collapsed in the span of 37 minutes. It started with a phone call at 6 a.m. The health department. A complaint had been filed. 2 customers claimed they'd gotten severe food poisoning from the hearth 3 nights ago. They were demanding an immediate inspection. "That's impossible," I told the inspector, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the personality of wet cardboard. "We've had 0 complaints. Our food handling procedures are spotless." "Nevertheless, Mr. Harlan, we have to investigate every claim." The customers provided detailed receipts and medical documentation. I stood in my empty dining room, watching him swab surfaces and check temperatures, my mind racing. 3 nights ago had been Tuesday. We'd served maybe 40 covers. I remembered every dish that left the kitchen, every customer who'd walked through the door. "Can you tell me who made the complaint?" "I'm not at liberty to say, but they've already posted reviews online. You might want to check that." My blood turned to ice water. I pulled out my phone and searched for the hearth on review sites. There they were. 2 scathing 1-star reviews posted just hours ago, complete with photos of hospital bracelets and detailed descriptions of their horrific experience. Jennifer Walsh, "Worst meal of my life. The salmon was clearly spoiled. Spent 2 days in the ER. This place should be shut down." David Chen, Food poisoning from hell. The chef obviously doesn't care about basic food safety. Save your money and your health. Except, I'd never seen these people before in my life. Harry, I called to the kitchen, do you remember serving a Jennifer Walsh or David Chen on Tuesday? She emerged from the walk-in cooler, arms full of vegetables for prep. Never heard those names. Want me to check the reservation book? We checked. No Jennifer Walsh, no David Chen, no record of them anywhere in our system. But their reviews were spreading like wildfire. My phone started buzzing with cancellation calls. The lunch rush never materialized. By evening, we'd served 12 covers instead of our usual 45. Boss, what do we do? Asked Tommy, one of my line cooks. He was 19, fresh out of culinary school, and looked like he might cry. We fight back, I said. Harry, call Denny Ross. Tell him I need to see him tonight. Denny Ross had been a cop for 20 years before going private. He had the kind of face that looked like it had been carved from granite with a dull chisel, and he chain-smoked unfiltered cigarettes like they were going out of style. His office smelled like an ashtray and old coffee, but he was the best PI in town. Someone's trying to destroy your business, he said after I'd explained everything. Question is who and why. I might have an idea about the why, I said, thinking about my group text from opening night. But I need proof before I start pointing fingers. Proof costs money. I've got money. What I don't have is time. Every day this stays online, I lose customers. Denny leaned back in his chair, studying me through a cloud of cigarette smoke. You know what you're asking me to do here? If someone's really trying to ruin you, they're not going to stop at fake reviews. This could get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. I just want to know who's holding the knife. It took Denny 3 days to crack the case, but when he did, the betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined possible. Your fake customers aren't very smart, he said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. Jennifer Walsh and David Chen are real people, but they've never been within 50 miles of your restaurant. Someone stole their identities to create the fake accounts. I opened the folder. Screenshots of social media profiles, bank records, phone logs. My head spun, trying to process it all. Here's where it gets interesting, Denny continued, lighting another cigarette. The hospital photos they posted, stock images from a medical website, the receipts, photoshopped. But whoever did this made one crucial mistake. He pulled out a printed page. Venmo transaction records. Someone paid Jennifer Walsh, the real Jennifer Walsh, $500 2 weeks ago. The memo line says, consulting fee, but the timing's suspicious. She lives in Ohio, works at a call center, probably needed the money, and didn't ask too many questions about what she was consulting on. Who paid her? Denny's weathered face cracked into something that might have been a smile. The payment came from an account registered to LK Marketing Solutions. My blood pressure spiked. LK, Lila Catherine. Your wife runs a marketing company? Used to. She's been between projects for the past year. I stared at the transaction record, my hands shaking slightly. But why would she? Keep reading. The next page showed David Chen's payment. Same amount, same memo, same source. But there was more. Phone records showing calls between LK Marketing and both fake victims on the same day the reviews went live. Email chains discussing project details and timeline for implementation. She planned this, I said, the words tasting like poison. My own wife planned to destroy my restaurant. Gets worse, Denny said. Look at page 4. A third Venmo payment, this one for $1,000, sent to someone named Evan Callister just 2 days before the fake reviews appeared. The memo line read, PR consultation, restaurant project. Who's Evan Callister? That's what I was hoping you'd tell me. But based on his social media, he's some kind of PR consultant. Lots of photos at fancy events, expensive suits, drives a BMW. Ring any bells? It did. Evan Callister was Mason's friend from college, a slick operator who specialized in reputation management for wealthy clients. I'd met him at a few family gatherings over the years. He was the type who always had a scheme brewing, always looking for an angle. He's connected to my brother, I said. They've been friends for years. So we've got your wife, your brother's friend, and two fake victims all coordinating to destroy your business. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I stared at the evidence spread across Denny's desk. Legal documents that could clear my name, expose the conspiracy, maybe even lead to criminal charges. The smart play would be to take it all to the police. Let the system handle it. But I wasn't feeling particularly smart. I was feeling angry. I want to hire you for another job, I said. What kind of job? The kind where they get exactly what they deserve. Evan Callister lived in a luxury condo downtown, the kind of place with a doorman and valet parking. His BMW sat in the garage like a trophy, pristine and polished. According to Denny's surveillance, Evan kept a predictable schedule. Gym at 6 a.m., office by 9, long lunch at the country club, home by 7. But tonight was different. Tonight, Evan was hosting a networking event for potential clients, trying to rebuild his reputation after a recent scandal involving a city councilman and some misappropriated campaign funds. The event was being held at the Riverside Hotel, and according to the invitation Harry had snagged from a friend in catering, it was supposed to showcase Evan's crisis management expertise. Perfect. You sure about this? Harry asked as we sat in my truck outside the hotel. She was wearing her best black dress and carrying a server's apron, ready to blend in with the catering staff. He helped destroy my business, I said. Turnabout's fair play. Yeah, but what you're planning, it's not exactly legal. Neither was what he did to me. The plan was simple. Harry would create a distraction in the hotel's main ballroom while I slipped upstairs to Evan's condo. He'd given me the building tour himself at a Christmas party 2 years ago, bragging about his kitchen renovation and his collection of expensive knives. Those knives were about to get some use. At exactly 8:30 p.m., Harry sent the signal, a text that just said, "Now." I slipped through the hotel's service entrance and took the elevator to the 15th floor. Evan's door was locked, but Denny had taught me a few tricks during our planning session. The condo was exactly as I remembered: sterile, expensive, and cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor, and the kitchen was a monument to form over function. Granite countertops, professional-grade appliances, and a knife block filled with German steel that had probably never cut anything more challenging than a lime for Evan's gin and tonics. I started with the knives, dulling each blade with a metal file I'd brought from the restaurant. Then I moved to the refrigerator, carefully rearranging the contents. Milk went behind the condiments where it would spoil unnoticed. I loosened the caps on every jar and bottle, just enough that they'd spill when moved. In the freezer, I found a bag of expensive frozen shrimp and scattered the shells throughout the condo, behind the couch cushions, in the air vents, under the bed. The piece de resistance was the note I left on his pillow. Next time you want to poison someone's reputation, make sure you're not serving them ammunition. A concerned chef. By the time I made it back to the truck, Harry was already waiting. How'd it go? She asked. Let's just say Evan's going to have an interesting week. 3 days later, Denny called with an update. Your boy Evan's been having some problems. Called an exterminator twice, had his cleaning lady quit, and apparently threw a dinner party that ended with half his guests getting food poisoning from spoiled milk in the sauce. Shame, I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. There's more. He's been asking around about you, trying to figure out if you know about the fake reviews. Word is he's getting paranoid. Good. Paranoid people make mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, you might want to lay low for a while. Someone vandalized your restaurant last night. My blood went cold. What kind of vandalism? Spray paint across the front window. Big red letters, poisoner. Your neighbor called it in around 2 a.m. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm heading over there now. Nick, wait, there's something else. My contact at the police department says there was a car parked across the street when the vandalism happened. Dark sedan, couldn't make out the plates, but it took off when the patrol car showed up. Evan drives a dark BMW. That's what I'm thinking. But here's the thing. If he's escalating to property damage, this isn't over. You need to be careful. I stood in front of the hearth 20 minutes later, staring at the ugly red letters dripping down my front window like blood. The word poisoner was 6 feet tall and impossible to miss. A few early morning joggers had already stopped to take pictures. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Heavy breathing, then a voice I recognized. You think you're smart, don't you? Evan? I know what you did to my place. The shrimp, the knives, all of it. You're going to pay for that. Prove it, I said. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to destroy you. And trust me, I'm just getting started. The line went dead. I stood there holding the phone, staring at my vandalized restaurant, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Evan wanted to escalate? Fine. But he had no idea who he was dealing with. The Riverside Summer...
Your intern filed this, then withdrew it. What did you promise her?
It was consensual.
He's 23 years old!
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Festival was the biggest event of the year in our little coastal town. 3 days of food vendors, live music, and enough small-town politics to fuel gossip for months. It was also the perfect venue for what I had planned. You're insane, Harry said as we loaded equipment into the catering truck. Absolutely, completely insane. Probably, I agreed, but it's going to work. The plan had taken 2 weeks to arrange. Denny had used his contacts to get us a vendor spot at the festival, officially registered as Harlan Catering Services. What the festival organizers didn't know was that we weren't there to sell food. We were there to serve justice. I'd spent those 2 weeks gathering evidence. Not just the Venmo records and fake review documentation, but new material. Photos of Evan's BMW parked outside my restaurant the night of the vandalism. Audio recordings of Lila and Evan discussing their campaign against me. Captured by the listening device Denny had planted in Evan's car. Bank records showing a pattern of payments between Lila, Evan, and the fake victims. But the crown jewel was the confession. Jennifer Walsh, the real Jennifer Walsh from Ohio, had agreed to tell the truth in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Denny had recorded a 20-minute phone call where she detailed exactly how Lila had contacted her, what she'd been asked to do, and how much she'd been paid to let someone use her identity for the fake reviews. Testing, Harry said into the portable PA system we'd rented. How's the sound? Perfect. What time did Denny say they'd be here? Lila and Evan should be any minute. Your brother's bringing them to see the surprise you have planned. Mason had been surprisingly easy to manipulate. One phone call claiming I wanted to make amends, that I had a special announcement to make at the festival, and he'd eagerly agreed to bring Lila and Evan to our booth at exactly 3 p.m. He had no idea what was coming. At 2:55, I spotted them walking through the crowd. Mason looked pleased with himself, probably thinking he was facilitating some kind of reconciliation. Lila wore a sundress and oversized sunglasses, playing the part of the supportive wife. Evan strutted beside them in khakis and a polo shirt, looking like he owned the world. Nick! Mason called out as they approached. This is great, man. I'm so glad you're ready to put all this family drama behind us. Oh, I'm definitely ready to put it behind us, I said, stepping up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment. The festival crowd began to gather, curious about the impromptu announcement. I spotted several familiar faces, customers from the restaurant, local business owners, the food critic from the newspaper. My name is Nick Harlan, and I own the Hearth restaurant downtown. Some of you may have heard that we've been dealing with some negative reviews lately, accusations of food poisoning and poor sanitation. Lila's face had gone pale. She was tugging on Mason's arm, trying to get him to leave, but he was rooted in place, confused by the sudden turn. What I want to share with you today is the truth about those reviews. They were fake, completely fabricated by people who wanted to destroy my business for personal reasons. Nick, what are you doing? Lila hissed. But the microphone picked it up clearly. I'm serving the truth, dear wife. Harry, would you mind playing that recording we discussed? Harry pressed play on the audio system. Jennifer Walsh's voice filled the air, crystal clear and damning. This woman called me, said her name was Lila Harlan. She offered me $500 to let her use my name and photo for a fake restaurant review. Said it was for a business dispute, that her husband had cheated her somehow. I needed the money, so I said yes. I never actually ate at any restaurant. The crowd was dead silent. Lila had gone from pale to green. But wait, there's more, I continued. Harry, the Venmo records, please. A projection screen we'd set up behind our booth lit up with enlarged images of the payment records. Lila's name was clearly visible as the sender, along with the amounts and dates. $500 to Jennifer Walsh, $500 to David Chen, $1,000 to Evan Callister for PR consultation. All payments made in the weeks leading up to the fake reviews. Evan tried to push through the crowd, but people were blocking his path, all of them staring at him with disgust and recognition. "This is defamation," he shouted. "I'll sue you for everything you're worth." "With what lawyer?" I asked. "Because I'm pretty sure falsifying health department complaints is a felony." "Harry, would you mind calling Officer McKay? I think he'll want to hear this." The crowd was buzzing now, voices rising in anger and disbelief. Someone shouted, "Scumbag!" at Evan. Another person yelled at Lila, calling her a cheating witch. Mason looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "Lila? Tell me this isn't true." But Lila was already running, pushing through the crowd with her head down, leaving Mason and Evan to face the music alone. "One more thing," I said into the microphone as police sirens approached in the distance. "The Hearth will be offering free meals to anyone who was scared away by the fake reviews. We've got nothing to hide and everything to prove." The crowd erupted in applause. Several people immediately approached our booth, asking about reservations and expressing their support. Evan was still trying to escape when Officer McKay arrived, but the crowd had formed a helpful circle around him. There was nowhere to run. "Nick Harlan?" McKay asked as he approached. "I understand you have some evidence to share?" "More than you'll know what to do with," I said, handing him a thick folder. "Audio recordings, bank records, signed confessions, everything you need to press charges for fraud, defamation, and filing false reports." As McKay led Evan away in handcuffs, I caught sight of Mason standing alone by the cotton candy stand, looking lost and betrayed. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered opening night and the empty table marked "Reserved Harlan Family," and the feeling passed. 3 months later, the Hearth was busier than ever. The publicity from the festival incident had backfired spectacularly on Lila and Evan. Instead of destroying my reputation, their scheme had made me something of a local hero. Reservations were booked solid for weeks in advance. Evan was facing criminal charges and had lost most of his clients. His BMW had been repossessed, and word around town was that he'd moved back in with his parents. Lila had filed for divorce, demanding half of everything, including the restaurant. Her lawyer was a shark from Boston who specialized in high-asset matrimonial disputes, which was a fancy way of saying he helped cheating spouses steal their partner's money. But I had advantages Lila didn't know about. "The prenup is ironclad," my lawyer explained during our meeting. "She signed away any claim to the restaurant specifically. Plus, with the evidence of her sabotage efforts, we can probably argue for damages." "I don't want damages," I said. "I want her gone. Completely, permanently gone." "That can be arranged? But Nick, there's something else we need to discuss. Your brother Mason has been asking questions about the restaurant's finances. He seems to think he has some kind of claim." This was news to me. "What kind of claim?" "He's saying he provided startup capital when you first opened, calling it a loan that needs to be repaid." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mason never gave me a dime. I have bank records to prove every penny came from my own savings and a business loan." "That's what I figured, but he's hired a lawyer too. Seems like the whole family is circling the wagons." The family. What was left of it anyway? My parents had stopped speaking to me after the festival incident, claiming I'd embarrassed the family name by airing our dirty laundry in public. Mason was apparently trying to salvage something from the wreckage by making a play for my restaurant. They still didn't understand. This wasn't about money or property or family loyalty. This was about respect. And they'd lost the right to mine the night they chose not to show up for my grand opening. Set up a meeting, I told my lawyer, all of them together. Lila, Mason, their lawyers. Let's finish this. The meeting was held in a conference room at the courthouse, neutral ground with plenty of witnesses. Lila arrived first, dressed in a black power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd lost weight since the festival, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Mason came in with his lawyer, a local guy who looked uncomfortable with the whole situation. He kept glancing at me like he was expecting me to explode. Before we begin, Lila's shark lawyer said, my client wants to make it clear that she's willing to settle this amicably. She's not looking to destroy anyone's livelihood. How generous, I said, considering she already tried that and failed. My client made some poor decisions under emotional duress, the lawyer continued. She's prepared to forego any claim to the restaurant in exchange for a fair division of other marital assets. What other assets? I asked. The house is in my name, bought with my money before we were married. The cars are mine. The savings account has maybe $3,000 in it. What exactly does she think she's entitled to? Lila finally spoke up, her voice tight with controlled anger. I supported you for 6 years while you chased this restaurant dream. I deserve something for that. You supported me? I laughed. You mean the part where you actively sabotaged my business? Or the part where you recruited my brother's friend to help destroy my reputation? Which part of that was supportive exactly? That's enough, Mason interjected. We're all family here. Let's try to work this out like adults. I turned to look at him, really look at him, for the first time since this whole mess started. My older brother, the golden child, the one who'd always gotten everything handed to him while I worked for every scrap. Family, I repeated. Tell me, Mason, where was this family spirit on opening night? Where was it when your wife was hiring fake customers to destroy my business? Where was it when you were covering for them? I didn't know. Bullshit. I pulled out a folder Danny had prepared. Phone records show 17 calls between you and Evan in the 2 weeks before the fake reviews went live. Text messages discussing the restaurant situation and how to handle Nick. You knew exactly what was happening. Mason's lawyer leaned over to whisper something in his ear, but Mason waved him off. Fine, he said. Maybe I knew Lila was upset about the restaurant. Maybe I thought you needed to be taken down a peg. You cut us all off, Nick. Changed your phone number, stopped returning calls. What were we supposed to think? You were supposed to think that I was hurt, that I needed my family to show up for the most important night of my life. And when you didn't, it broke something inside me. The room went quiet. Even the lawyers seemed uncomfortable. But that's water under the bridge now, I continued. What matters is what happens next. Lila, you get nothing. The prenup stands, and you can consider yourself lucky I'm not pursuing criminal charges for the business sabotage. You can't. I can and I will. Mason, your claim to the restaurant is fraudulent and we both know it. Drop it or I'll file a countersuit for attempted extortion. This is ridiculous, Mason's lawyer said. My client has legitimate concerns about... Your client, I interrupted, is a jealous, entitled piece of shit who can't stand seeing his younger brother succeed. He never gave me a penny for the restaurant, and I have bank records going back 5 years to prove it. I stood up, gathering my papers. Here's what's going to happen. Lila, you're going to sign the divorce papers as written, take your personal belongings, and disappear. Mason, you're going to withdraw your bogus claim and never contact me again. Both of you are going to stay away from my restaurant, my employees, and my customers. And if we don't? Lila asked. I smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. Then I'll destroy you the same way you tried to destroy me. Except I'll do it better because I actually know what I'm doing. I walked out of the conference room and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, both sets of papers were signed. Lila moved back to Boston to live with her mother. Mason withdrew his claim and put his own house up for sale, apparently planning to relocate somewhere his reputation hadn't been completely shredded. The Hearth continued to thrive. We'd been featured in 3 food magazines and had a waiting list for reservations that stretched into next year. I'd hired 2 more cooks and a full-time hostess. Harry had been promoted to kitchen manager and was already talking about opening a second location. But the real victory came on a Tuesday evening in late fall, when I was working the pass during dinner service. The dining room was packed, every table full of happy customers enjoying food I'd created with my own hands. A young couple at table 12 caught my attention. They were celebrating something, an anniversary maybe, or a promotion. The woman was taking pictures of every course, posting them on social media with captions about how amazing everything was. I thought about Lila and Evan, wherever they were now, probably still dealing with the legal and financial consequences of their scheme. I thought about Mason, packing up his life and starting over in some city where nobody knew his name. And I thought about opening night, 6 months and a lifetime ago, when I'd stood in this same kitchen, waiting for family who never came. "Chef," Harry called out, "Table 12 wants to send their compliments. They're asking if you have time to come out and meet them." I wiped my hands on my apron and walked into the dining room. The young couple beamed at me as I approached their table. "This meal has been incredible," the woman said. "We drove 2 hours to eat here after reading about you online. You're exactly as talented as everyone says." "Thank you," I said. "That means everything to me." And it did. Because this, the satisfied customers, the successful business, the respect I'd earned through my own hard work, this was what family was supposed to feel like. Lila and Mason and Evan had tried to poison my dream, but all they'd done was make it stronger. The reservation list for my old family was permanently closed, but the hearth would always have room for people who understood what loyalty really meant.